Hi, have the events of 2020 sent you into a downward emotional spiral? Are you struggling to feel balanced emotionally? You're certainly not alone in this feeling this way. It's been a pretty difficult year to process with all different kinds of challenges that are coming at us from all different directions. And has left most of us just feeling emotionally exhausted. Now, if like me, um, and you kind of ready to let it all go and get the new year off to a much better start, then that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Hi, I'm Marianne from One Life to Flourish, and welcome to tonight's episode of Monday Motivation. And tonight we are looking at the final part of clearing out 2020, and this is looking at our emotions, particularly our negative ones, and how we can change the impact of these emotions so that we're ready to fire into 2021. So if you know someone who might find this information really interesting, please invite them along to view. Also, just make sure that you are watching from One Life to Flourish so that I can see your comments. We are going live in a few places. Otherwise, I'll try and catch up with you afterwards. But if you're watching from One Life to Flourish, just kind of let me know and I can say hi to you and whatever. All right. So let's just take a little bit of a look at how our body and mind actually deal with emotions. So I'm not going to get too scientific and technical, but it's kind of interesting what's actually happening, and understanding what's going on can actually help us to deal with our emotions in a better way. So basically, there are different networks in the brain that create different emotions. Yes, notice the word create. Our emotions are created, but it happens at an unconscious level, so we're not actually aware of what's happening. And then these emotions that are created kind of exist in our minds like a concept that guides the actions of our unconscious mind. And these actions are actually used to kind of preserve us, to keep us alive, to keep us going along the best that we can, because this is the number one job of our unconscious mind. Now, often the input that creates these emotions can actually be misinterpreted by the brain. So the decisions about what the emotion actually is based on what's happened in the past. So past experiences, how you felt in certain situations, what it means if your heart rate is changing or something's happening in your digestive system, maybe your breathing's increased. All of these things, your brain connects back to past information, and sometimes it can be misinterpreted, sometimes it can be interpreted accurately, but we can actually create a different focus for that emotion by starting to turn it around. So let me give you an example. The physical changes that happen in our bodies when we're excited are basically the same as those as when we're afraid. So we can actually start to turn it around by saying, this emotion is excitement rather than fear. All right, so let's have a little bit of a look at the third part of the whole thing, which is our thoughts. Last week, we talked a little bit about how the news impacts negatively on our thoughts. Today we're going to talk a little bit about internal dialogue and what we're kind of creating with our internal dialogue. Now, interestingly, what we're thinking and saying to ourselves actually has an impact on our physical body, creating a physical response. So remember, we've already said a physical response then is interpreted into being an emotion by the mind and the brain. So if you think about it, sometime maybe if you're feeling a little bit worried about something, you might notice that your muscles are becoming tight and perhaps painful. So this is a physical response to things that we're thinking about. And then this is going to be interpreted in a certain way as that information gets into our brain. And it's seen as being a particular emotion. So this is then kind of gets repeated because our thoughts then become worse as we're dealing with pain, and we start to feel more and more frustrated. And this is how we actually start to build up this negative emotional cycle. So let's kind of step back. So that's kind of a very brief idea of how it's all working. So how can we actually use this process to help us clear negative emotions out of our self as much as we can? So one thing that we can do is actually use this information to change how we're actually doing stuff. So if we're not aware of what's happening with our internal dialogue, we can't actually change our internal dialogue. So basically, our mind is sitting there narrating our life, and what it narrates is just random stuff that pops into our head. It may be correct, it may not be correct. There's sort of no judgment filter or anything like that. So it's just kind of stuff constantly going into your head. And if we're not consciously aware of it, then it has an impact on us. So the first thing is actually becoming consciously aware of our internal dialogue and challenging what those thoughts are. All right. So if you find yourself, thinking something like, oh, I always seem to miss out on, the good things in life, or I never have any good luck, then challenge that thought. Start by asking some questions. So it could be something like, what good things have happened to me? And how come I'm so lucky? So you just turn it around a little bit. Because you're using questions, that actually engages your unconscious mind in trying to find evidence for what you're asking. So it gives it a new positive focus to look at instead of focusing just on the negative self-talk that you've got going. All right, so then you need to choose to focus on positive things and bring positive thoughts into your conscious focus. Now remember, emotions are a choice. You have power over your thinking, and you can use this to actually change what's happening, change your focus. So the next part of, changing out the emotional stuff is going back to things that I've talked about all year. So first of all, each day, find at least 3 things you're grateful for. You can just say them, but it's great if you actually write them down. That can be really helpful. Spend time in mindful meditation. That helps to slow down and manage some of this self-talk. And next, particularly if you find yourself really getting caught up in that negative self-talk, ask yourself what's been going well during the day. It's good to do this at the end of the day, but you can also do it at any time during the day when you find that you're just focusing a bit too much on negative self-talk. And then finally, turn your focus towards things that you're looking forward to. Now, this can be as simple as thinking about sitting down at the end of the day and watching a show that you love, or reading a good book, just something very simple like that kind of gives you a little bit of a jolt of pleasure as you think about it. It could be something like, or actually organising a meet-up with friends, say in a few days or a week, and then actually looking forward to it with really positive anticipation. It could be, putting in place some plans to actually go somewhere for a little bit of a break. Now, this year, it's been really easy to focus on all the things that we haven't been able to do and all the places we haven't been able to go. And it's fine to be a bit disappointed by those changes around how we'd normally lead our life. But the trouble comes in when we actually dwell on the emotions rather than, do a little bit of, oh, that's something that's not so great, but let me focus instead on this positive thing. All right, so the important thing to remember is that we can create positive emotions just as much as we can create negative emotions. So it does require a bit of conscious effort, because as I talked about last week, we do have a bit of a negativity bias that can help us to head towards negative thinking and negative ideas. But it is possible to actually create a habit using some of the things I've talked about to change the negative emotions. if you find that that you're struggling with it, it may be necessary to actually get a little bit of extra support with that to actually break through, and that can be quite a possible and positive thing. So I've given you quite a few different tips around clearing out 2020 physically, mentally, and emotionally. If you follow those tips, then you'll find that you are definitely ready to face 2021 and whatever it has in store for us in a much more positive way. Now, if you're wanting some help with building some positive emotions, I once again have put the link to get my Happiness Habits Playbook program. So this is actually a short course that can help you to create positive habits. It really does help you to deal with that negative self-talk and the negative focus that we might have already created this year. All right, if you though want to turbocharge your mental and emotional clear out, then I have an amazing program called Limitless Thinking that could really help you. Now, stay tuned. I'm going to release some details and a super special deal on December 31. All right, so keep your eyes peeled for anywhere that I could be putting that, or if you're really interested in finding out more, message me and I will send you the details once I have released them. Okay, I am going to be back next Monday with Monday Motivations, same time. Now, during January, I'm going to be talking about creating some big goals and building some power-packed habits to help you make the best start possible to 2021. So, goodbye, and I'll see you in 2021. Now I'm thinking about it. So, bye for now.